Good evening. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Round Lake Area School District Board of Education on May 16th, 2022 at 7:03 p.m. If I can, let me get started with a roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley?
Here.
Mr. Francisco?
Here.
Mr. De Vera?
Here.
Mrs. Larson?
Here.
Mr. Dewitt?
Here.
Thank you. And next up is our Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First up is approval of meeting agenda. We have an agenda in front of us. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. De Vera. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Dewitt?
Yes.
And we have an approved agenda. And first up on that agenda are special recognition and presentations. And first one up is our Athletic Director of the Year.
Members of the board, Dr. Mendoza, it is an honor and a privilege to introduce Becky Moran for recognition of being awarded the Illinois Athletic Directors Association Athletic Director of the Year for 2022. I thought it was important to share why Becky is the recipient of the award, so I therefore asked somebody who's very familiar with Becky and her work, Tina Woolard, athletic director at Grays Lake North High School, to provide a little bit of detail. Tina writes, Becky has been a member of the IADA for the past 15 years. She has served as the professional development coordinator on the board since 2008. She has taught over 16 different leadership training courses and also teaches 2 different administrator academies. She has served the IADA as the program chair for 5 years and was the conference co-chair in 2011. She was instrumental in the formation of the monthly online IADA professional development series. She is also the co-chair of the IADA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Becky's service to the IHSA is also extensive. She serves on the Sportsmanship Advisory Committee and was Student Leadership Facilitator in 2019. She has been an ad hoc committee member for Success Factor and Classification. Becky has also coordinated and facilitated the annual summer retreat alongside the IHSA, which includes new athletic directors workshop since 2008. She has also assisted in the creation and running of the monthly IADA IHSA online informational meetings. Nationally, Becky is on the NIAAA Board of Directors, easy for me to say, and will be the next president of the organization, as she is currently the president-elect. She has served as the Title IX Ad Hoc Committee Chair, the Credentials Chairperson, and a mentor of the NIAAA Cohort Program. As you can see, Becky is very deserving of this accolade, and we are very proud of her at Round Lake High School. Congratulations, Becky.
And next up are our April Athletes of the Month.
Thank you for having me here to celebrate our two April Athletes of the Month. First up, I'd like to ask Coach Adam Davis to please come forward to present our Male Athlete of the Month.
Good evening, board. It's been a while since I've been here. Thank you for having me. It's my honor to recognize April Athlete of the Month for the sport of tennis. It's been quite a while, but if you haven't heard the name, I think after tonight you will remember. His name is Seth Lampkin. Before I have him and his mother come up, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Seth and his tennis career. He just finished his sophomore season, has one more tournament at the end of the week. His 2-year record is 26 wins, 12 losses. He is now a 2-time all-conference tennis player at Raleigh High School. As I was driving here, I was trying to think of what I could say about Seth besides just his stats, his numbers, the type of grit, determination. I was in Becky's office this morning and she said, yeah, you have to say something. And I'm like, oh man, what can I say about? So I thought about it, and the one thing I can say about Seth is he challenges me as a coach. And that's the highest accolade I can pay to Seth. He makes me be better at what I do so I can help him. We have a great relationship like that, and I'm looking forward to coaching with him the next 2 seasons. So let's invite Seth up here with his mother.
And next up, I'd like to bring forward our girls soccer coach, Victor Rico.
Hello. Ari Gonzalez. Ari Gonzalez, special athlete. She is the type of student athlete that everyone's looking for. She has spectacular month, let alone year. She's a 4.20 GPA student. She's our leader. She's a captain. She had 19 goals and 9 assists this month. So for somebody to put those numbers up, it's a great feat. And with all of that, the hard work, the dedication, the leadership, the sportsmanship, I can't say enough good things about Ari. Ari's only a sophomore. She's got 36 career goals so far these 2 years. So she's definitely a player to look out for. I am extremely happy and blessed to have her in the team. But as a student athlete, Round Lake is extremely excited and proud of her.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza, for that entire Ross Perot moment right now. All right, next up on the communications to the board, we have our BPAC update. I believe it's Ms. Alfaro. Yep, yay!
Good evening. This is our last report for this year. On Saturday, May 7, 2022, BPAC committee attended the Bilingual Parent Summit of the state of Illinois. Every year, we learn something different and useful for our students. Last Saturday, we had our annual Women's Leadership Conference at McGee Middle School from 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. A group of 30 moms learned about the 5 love languages and the 5 languages of forgiving and about art therapy. Our presenters are community volunteers who want to support our families. Thank you to our volunteers. We already have our BPAC calendar of activities for the next school year. We are continue working for all students and their families. Today is the last report for this year. In the future, in September, we'll announce our next BPAC president, our new BPAC president. So it was a pleasure to me to be here. So we need a new president now. But I continue to support the BPAC because I live in this community and I love this community. I love the BPAC. And thank you, Dr. Mendoza, for everything, especially thank for my board education. So I'm here, I'm not leaving because I love to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alfaro, especially for your dedication and your commitment to BPAC as well, so we thank you. All right, next up is our Organic Life presentation. And I believe it's Dr. Kibbins will be kicking off. Question mark?
Good evening. As requested by the Board of Education, Organic Life is here for their 3 of 3 three-peat presentation this evening, giving you an update on food service as we look at the school year in review 2021 to 2022. Behind you or to the directly behind Mr. DeVera and Mr. Jewett is some of the data that was collected as they present. Yes, we've got a little Vanna, little arms going there, presenting the data that the focus groups and some of you had an opportunity to also enjoy some of the Round Lake Pizza Challenge from the students. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Jose Gutierrez, who is the Vice President of Organic Life, and Melissa Bungie, who is a Round Lake graduate and is also our food service director.
Press this right, correct, yeah. Good evening, thank you for having us. What will be our third final presentation for this school year. First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Kivens and the board and Dr. Mendoza, Dr. Mary Lamping as well for all the support you've given us throughout this school year and the past school year with COVID. Things have been a little wild, but we've pulled through, and I think we've done as best as we could. So I'm going to present to you the final portion of what the plan was for the year 21-22. Okay, sorry. I'll be looking down at my phone because I forgot my glasses for the slides. So participation for SSO breakfast, the summer seamless option breakfast is as follows. You can see from September through April the data we have. And actually you could see that totals were from January through April 26,387 breakfasts served, up to 37,000 plus in February, 38,450 in March, and 35,015 respectively in April. Based on the number of service days and attendance within enrollment. We figured that participation rate to be always trending upwards, which is a good thing. For SSO lunch, we're also at, from January, we started at 59,000, February 82,860, March 78,312, and April 73,829. Currently, we look at our participation rates, and we're currently at around a 75% for a CEP district. That's,
Can you advance the slide just for the audience?
oh, I'm sorry.
No,
yes.
no, no, don't be sorry. It's
There
no
you go.
problem at all. Thank you so much.
Okay. No, I can do it, sorry, I just missed it. So total meals sold for breakfast from August through April were 285,221 breakfasts. For lunch were 607,560 lunches sold up through April. Participation of EEC snacks, those we have seen a very nice trend going upwards from the beginning of the year, starting from 1,235, ending in April with 8,392 with participation for the little ones. So we figure that's always a good thing. When we started these meetings this year, we planned out our progress in phases and our reopening structure in phases. It was phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, just to kind of get a feel of what, the COVID guidelines were allowing us to do and what the students were willing to do. In phase 1, we started with, minimal items on the menu, keeping it simple just so kids can get through the line and, keep social distancing between them, keep things efficient and safe. Phase 2, we started adding a little more things. And for phase 3, our plan for phase 3 was to add additional menu options, really do the focus groups, like focus on feedback from students and parents, which is something that we specialized in phase 3. That included the pizza challenge, and also, like I said, parent focus groups, elementary, middle school, and high school. So first I'll talk about the pizza challenge, which was, I know some of you were present as judges. It was a very fun day. Basically, students made their own pizza. We divided them into teams. We brought one of our, Professor Pizza, who's one of our chefs. He's a world champion pizza competitor. We brought him in to show the kids how pizza's made, what goes into making our pizzas, how toppings match with each other. Made a makeshift station with them. We divided them in teams, gave them a chef for everybody, and each team made their own. They made like 2 or 3 varieties of pizzas, which they then presented to the judges. Judges included our chefs, some board members, and some administrators as well. Based on the scoring system that we did, we had a winning team, which made sense. The winning team was the basketball girls team, so that kind of fit in with everything. And they ended up calling they all named their pizza, but the winning pizza was called obviously the champion pizza because of the girls basketball team. Regardless whether there was a winner, I feel like we all won that day because the students were just so excited to be able to see, hands-on what goes in the kitchen, what we're actually putting on pizzas. They're able to build their own. I felt like everyone was really excited. They gave us ideas for more recipes. The winning pizza was included in the menu, and it has been included every Wednesday in the high school. So they get to, that's kind of their prize. And also, there you can see the winning pizza and some pictures of the judges trying out the food. I think most of you did try it today. We did sample it for you guys. So the winning pizza, I'll just tell you guys what it had, even though most of you tasted it. It had a mushroom, green pepper, pepperoni, Italian sausage, onion, crushed red pepper, garlic, and oil. It was nice and spicy. We also used the pizza challenge as a kind of a way to get kids to do a focus group with us. It was a nice way to get them to help give us feedback. So the way we did that, you have the poster boards behind you there. We with the help of Dr. Kivens had them basically give us a post-it note, like give us a dislike or something you think needs improvement in the program, and give us something you really like. just so that we know what we're doing good and what we're not, we want to make better. And we did the same thing with the elementary school and the middle school. In elementary, we picked about 10 kids per site. We went through every school. And we pretty much saw the same overarching themes on what the kids liked and disliked. So likes, the obvious thing, they love the chicken tenders, the pizza, they love the turkey subs, the hot dogs, the nachos. They love the emoji crackers that we give for breakfast, which I'm sure, yeah, we actually gave you guys bags, little goodie bags with the apron and the shirt that the kids used in the survey. And we included some of like the most popular items that kids like for breakfast. And if anyone else wants to try some, we have some available in the cafeteria. But they really like those things. They really like the taste of food, overarching themes. Their suggestions were more tater tots and fries, obviously, more Tuesday breakfast, more breakfast stations. A lot of students that say sometimes they woke up late, they didn't have time to get to breakfast. So if we made breakfast more accessible to them, like bringing more stations to their entrances, then it would help them grab a breakfast as opposed to having to run down in the cafeteria. And the high school kids wanted stir fry, more stir fry station. For the parent focus group, with the help of Maria Kalanga, who is the district parent liaison, she helped organize this as well. We used the Cinco de Mayo event at the Round Lake Civic Center, kind of piggyback on them and have the parents, before they saw the mariachi, they could come and take a survey with us, taste our food. We really felt the parent focus group was very important because we want parents usually just hear from their kids what they're having or maybe see a picture or anything, but we want them to actually taste it for themselves. We wanted to teach them on what a school breakfast and a school lunch looks like, why we use certain products, what the guidelines are. And the feedback was very positive. And I was very glad to be able to have that engagement with parents so they know what's going on at their schools, what their kids' options are, and what they're eating. We basically, we had a very good turnout. There was a little more than 100 people there. Most parents, I would say 95% of people that attended took the survey and they tried the food. Their kids were there and their kids were showing them, yeah, this is what we eat at school. So it was a very good experience. Most of the feedback from the parents, they liked that the food was very nutritious. The guidelines from the USDA and what we follow are very nutritious. They were well balanced. There was good variety and it was good taste. Their suggestions, as well as suggestions from the kids, they did want more hot breakfast. We did explain to them that because of the current COVID situation where we're bagging meals and sending them to classrooms, hot breakfasts were limited, but we still are implementing more. And obviously next year when we're back to full force, everyone will be able to have a hot breakfast more often. So based on these focus groups, we did implement all the suggestions. We do have tater tots and fries now for all the kids, as opposed to just veggies. Tater tots and French fries do qualify as a veggie. They're in the starch subgroup. But we don't want to give them fries every day either way. We did do more, like I said, more hot breakfast. We found a supplier to give us bagged pancakes, which you see on that picture, that Eggo pancake. It's ready to go, you just warm it up. So those are things that can be easily packaged for a grab-and-go breakfast. We did add more juice at breakfast, more breakfast stations on the high school and middle school level so that kids can have more access to their stations, especially when they come in late. We also have a late station where our cashier comes outside the cafeteria. Any kids come in late, they can still grab a breakfast. And lastly, but more popular, we did add a stir fry 2 times a week, which you guys were able to experience today in the kitchen and not in the library. So, yeah, so we don't go through that again. But I'm glad you guys all got to taste it. That is what you see. Yeah, that's what the students see all the time. What we see is a long line. It's very popular. It's actually the first day, it was pretty heartwarming to see the kids taking videos and pictures. They're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in a restaurant. So it was nice. We're all very excited. We try to do it on Mondays and Wednesdays. And we choose those days because Mondays kids tend to not want to come to school. So we want to give them something to look forward to. Hey, it's Stir Fry Day, so they might be more inclined to come, because we do see our numbers drop on Mondays, and now they haven't with Stir Fry. As far as Wednesdays, I mean, we want to get over that hump of the week, get them something excited. It's Wednesday, Stir Fry Day, you got 2 days left, it's a weekend, so they have a good time. When we don't have Stir Fry Day, we use that station for a pasta station, which they also love. They love the mac and cheese, and they love all the pastas we have to offer. So what's next? For next year, we're looking forward, obviously, to serving in summer school, coming up soon, and heading into the school year at what we want to call full force. Because this year was limited, we did have limited options, we had a lot of supply chain issues. We also have limited menu options for the same reason COVID got us, to get the kids in quickly. But next year we want to come back full force with a la carte options ready to go, selling the Coke products, selling ice cream, selling the yogurts, the cookies that the kids love. Obviously all under our Smart Snack guidelines. More daily menu choices. Kids in elementary will have 2 hot options as opposed to 1 hot option, so they'll have 4 total options, 2 hot options, 2 cold options every day. And high school station enhancements, we're revamping some of our stations across the high schools just to keep things interesting and add more options on that end. So lastly, I want to thank you all for your partnership, and thank you for another successful year. The board and Melissa Bunger, Food Service Director, Dr. Pam Gibbons, Dr. Mendoza, Mary Lamping, everyone in the administration has been very instrumental in us having a successful year with the kids. And the end goal here is for the kids to have a nice meal, have a good meal, and have a successful program. It's really taking a village to run this program. I've been in situations where it's just, it's food service, just let them do their thing, But I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to present to you and to be able to, just let everyone know and keep the focus groups going, and just being able to make this a community effort as opposed to just a food service company running a kitchen. So thank you all. Any questions?
I just want to thank you for taking feedback from our parents and kids. I think you've even elevated what we've seen before. Definitely with prior food service partnerships, we didn't see that level of proactive input. So we agree, we want our kids to have good experiences and good meals. So I just appreciate that you ask. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And we'll see you Friday, I think. Yeah.
All right, next up we have professional learning. Woo!
Well, good evening, everyone. And as always, I'm so excited to talk about PD in our district. All right, so over the last 4 years, you've heard me talk a lot about building out the components of our program, whether that's laying a good mentoring foundation and getting RLU established, to building out the more innovative aspects like badging, instructional coaching, the parent partnership library, our YouTube channel. And all of that is essential and good to have. But what is more essential is making sure that our PD program is having the impact that we want it to have on our staff and students. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about tonight, is how we are measuring our impact and our next steps in that arena of assessing how effective our PD actually is. So when I talk about impact, what I specifically mean is the difference that our PD is making for our staff and for our students. And we can impact 5 different areas: knowledge, attitudes, skills, aspirations, and beliefs, or the K-Sab Model. And I didn't make that term up. That is based on the research of Joellen Killian. She's one of the nation's foremost experts in the arena of measuring the effectiveness of your PD. So the K-Sab Model, a couple things just to note about this. The first one is that it is a continuum. So if you look at knowledge, attitude, skills, aspirations, and beliefs, think about it from that most extreme level beliefs. You're unlikely to affect somebody's beliefs and radically change them overnight. You have to start with the knowledge, then maybe tweak their attitudes, build up some new skills, and you get there over time. And that's the second thing I want to point out about the K-Sab model is that it does take time. I could give the best workshop in the world right now, but you wouldn't radically change your practice in the classroom tomorrow. You would try a few things out, maybe you'd spend some time talking with your colleagues, you'd get some feedback and coaching from your neighbors or your evaluators, but it's a slow progress. It could take weeks, months, or even years to really change people's practice. So as we talk about measuring the impact of RPD, those are a few things to keep in mind, right? It's a nuanced, complex issue. It's not just a light switch that we're dealing with because we're dealing with learners and with people. So on that note, how do we measure the impact of RPD? I've listed several things that we can and do use to actually measure that impact. And about this, I just want to say it's important to match the measuring tool to what it is we're trying to do. Just like a ruler and a scale measure different things, all of these tools for measuring impact measure different things too. So for example, if I am just trying to assess whether a teacher is using a tech tool or teachers are using a tech tool that I showed them how to use, I might be using a combination of walkthrough data and self-reporting of implementation. But if I'm trying to assess something a little bit more conceptual and nuanced, maybe attitudes about equity, an attitude in an interest survey, and then maybe I might go into a little bit more student learning data or participant feedback. So having multiple lenses to look at our impact and matching those lenses to the proper outcome is super important. So what I'm going to do over the next couple slides is show you some actual examples our facilitators in our district are using now to measure their impact. So the feedback engine is what we are calling something that we piloted this semester. This is largely the brainchild of Brian Rolfson, our new teacher support specialist. He has a pretty strong science background, so he's been really instrumental in breaking down everything we're trying to accomplish with our workshops. So every spring workshop reported initial, intermediate, and long-term outcomes. And what that means is over the course of the semester, that's how long our workshops are, we have flighted outcomes that we would expect to see from our participants. So after just one session, maybe you're thinking about a topic, maybe you're setting some goals, maybe you thought about maybe trying something soon. After workshop 3 in March, hopefully you've tried a few things in your classroom. And then by May, maybe we have gotten an attitude shift or a belief shift, or maybe you do feel a bit more proficient in actually impacting that change in your classroom. So it addresses that progression element that we were talking about, and it helps our facilitators track participants' progress over time. So let's look at a specific example. Now this is courtesy of Crystal Oswald, our SEL specialist, and she is running a workshop entitled The Power of Our Words, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's all about how your teacher language can impact and really be a powerful force for your students. So in January, she reported that her initial outcomes should be that participants set one personally meaningful goal for themselves, for their teacher language, and also that they are aware that their language impacts their students. And participants self-reported whether or not they had done those two things. And now, Crystal, after her first workshop, had some data to go on to plan for the next one. So it might seem modest at the beginning, but you can see how it snowballs over the course of the semester. And you can see how we're encouraging our PD facilitators to do the same thing teachers do and collect and respond to that data. Let's look at another example, and this is from one of our coaches, Brooke Haas. As you know from prior presentations, in coaching, our coaches work one-on-one with teachers to set a personal goal that really means something to the teacher. And then they collect and measure and respond to data as to whether or not that teacher is meeting that goal. So this is one of my favorite slides. This is such powerful data. If you look at the bar graph up top on the left-hand side, that's the January data from the start of the coaching cycle. Now this teacher, their goals were all about student talk. They felt like they, the teacher, were doing all of the talking and the kids weren't talking very much, so they had a goal that was built to try and get kids to talk more. in January, 21 out of 21 kids responded to the community circle question at the beginning, but 14 of them never spoke again in class. 7 of them were doing all the talking for the rest of class. Now, if you look in April, 28 out of the 28 kids who were there on the day she observed talked 8 times or more. And that's so powerful. She went from 7 kids doing all of the talking to 28 kids speaking 8 times in a single lesson. And that's corroborated by those pie charts on the bottom. You can see that's the percentage of teacher talk time versus student. The teacher was doing 94% of the talking in January, but only half the talking in April. So this is such a powerful testament to the impact that coaching can make, but also if you zoom out one more step, this is why we need to measure the impact of our PD. It's one thing to hear a teacher say, coaching was great. It changed my practice, I loved it, I loved my coach. It's another thing to see the numbers right there in front of you. And that's the kind of data that we want to be collecting on all of our PD, not just coaching. To that end, our mentor program, being such a big, such a powerful program, we want to make sure that we are collecting and measuring the impact of it from several different angles. So on this slide, you have 2 things going on. On the left-hand side is the compiled exit interview data from all of our mentees from spring of 2021. So Brian compiled this last year, and he's working on this year's data right now as we speak. And this essentially there we go. And this essentially gives a bunch of different ways of looking at it. Everything from mentor-mentee match to preparedness for evaluation to understanding of expectations. And what we did is we analyzed the data and used it as a baseline to set goals for ourselves for next year, because we don't just want to pull goals out of nowhere. The program's been going on for much too long to do that. What we'd rather do is track our data towards specific goals and always raise the bar. So on the right-hand side, those are our goals for ourselves for next school year based on what we've been seeing. And this gives us a little bit of a compass too, because now as we make improvements, or what we hope are improvements to the program, if those numbers go up and if we're meeting our goals more and more, we'll know our improvements are actually working. All right, so everything that I just said was an initiative of the Department of Professional Learning, but actually the vast majority of PD in our district is created and delivered and provided by these fine people over here. All of our academic departments, SEL, language learners, SPED, everyone coming in regularly during SIP days, during new staff orientation, weekly PD at the elementary level, and providing that PD takes a ton of time, firstly. So these people work very, very hard to prepare and deliver high quality PD. But beyond that, having good PD that makes an impact is essential to the success of their programs. So it's so crucial that we have a partnership and a system to where we all are confident that our PD is landing. All right, so to that end, what we have done is create a PD planning template. Again, this is based on Joelle and Killian. I did not just make this up. And this asks all of our departments essentially to paint a goal of what instruction should look like in their area. So what would the ideal math classroom look like? What would great SEL instruction look like? And paint that picture and then work backwards to plan the PD that will make the goal happen. And then, and this is the most crucial part, figure out how you will know it's working. So our plan is for each department to have multiple data streams coming in to tell them your PD is landing. This is how it is changing the experience for students, for teachers. This is how instruction is changing across the district as a direct result of your PD. And you can see, and I encourage you to read the full example. This is the science departments, courtesy of Jess Crone, Marjorie Baker, and Alex Fawcett. They really painted a word picture of what they want science instruction to look like. And all of the PD that stems from that is directly related to that ideal. And with their multiple data streams coming in, you can tell that they are committed to tracking their progress all the way towards that goal. All right, so we are in a new phase with professional learning in our district. I think it's clear that because we have such a strong foundation, we're in a position where we don't need to pat ourselves on the back for giving PD, but we can start having a circular system where we look at what we want to do, have a reliable way of assessing whether we're doing it, and whatever the data says, we can respond to it. So what we might discover is that some forms of PD are more effective than others, and that's fine. As long as we can rely on the systems of information coming in, then we can respond to anything. So, as always, thank you so much for your time this evening, and I would love to answer any questions for you.
So I have a super quick one. And you're probably going to laugh because you said PD probably 400 times. So since you essentially sound like you're creating an IEP for PD because you're building goals and then going backward, how often are you guys going to evaluate if you're going in the right, movement, or if you need to tweak something, or?
That is an excellent question. Our plan is to meet with each of the departments once per quarter throughout next year. So the idea is quarter one is how's it going? Quarter two is how did it go and what should we do better next semester? Quarter three is how is it going now? And quarter four is next year, what's the plan? So I ingratiated myself to everyone with lots of meetings this past quarter because we had planning meetings, we had let's review your plan, like let me look at your template, let's ask a bunch of questions, let's help you plan data. But that conversation is key, so frequently is the answer.
So kind of like an IEP quarterly.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So on those PDs that you said that don't land and you have to have a different course of action, will you share those with us? Because I would like to see those that don't work and the course of action we take to improve.
Yes, and I think that there's two pieces of information that I think we have to have. Firstly is why is it ineffective? Because there can be so many answers to that. It might be a person thing, it might be a systemic thing, it might be a subject thing. There's also something weird that happens where when you're made to attend a presentation, you automatically think it's terrible. And so we know that, right? That's just like a behavioral psychological thing. So there's that grain of salt, I guess. But then the other thing is we need to consider if something isn't having the desired effect, how are we working with the people involved, right? So if it is a person thing, how are we working with the facilitator? How are we working with the department? Look, we have had false starts, and I think that responding to whatever the reason why we don't succeed is important because it's a growth opportunity.
I mean, it's great to see the successful ones, but I would also like to see the ones where we don't land and how we're reacting and responding to those. Thank you.
Additional questions? Thank you very much. All right, next up are Departments of Student Service and Special Education presentation.
Good evening. Thank you to Dr. Mendoza and the Board of Education for allowing us to come and share the annual Educational Services Update. So Educational Services are made up of Student Services, of which I am the Director, and Special Education, which Ms. Lisa Mari is the Director. So the first half of this presentation is going to be the Student Services Update. I'll provide an update on McKinney-Vento Services, Alternative Education, our wraparound services, and then Ms. Jane Farragon-Wilson is going to share an update on our Birth to 5 programming. So as we look at our McKinney-Vento services, over the last several years we have noticed a reduction in the number of students that we serve and provide homeless services. So during FY19 we had 56 students who received these services, and then in FY20 we had 36 students who received these services, and then last year we had 21 students who received these services. And with the reduction in the number of students that we serve, we've also seen a reduction in the largest expenditure for homeless services, which is transportation. So last year we saw a reduction of $36,389. One of the other services that we provide to our families is working with our county homeless liaison to provide gift cards for our families to provide needed items and services. So we worked with Matt Tabor and Jim Menzer through the ROE to provide $460 in gift cards to our MVA families. So as we look at our Alternative Learning Opportunities program, we have 3 different programs. The first program being the Achievement Academy. And in the Achievement Academy, these students are freshman students who are significantly behind in reading and mathematics. And these students are performing at the 3rd to 4th grade level. But the good thing is, as these students receive these services, we've seen their skills improve drastically. And last year, we did not have any students who needed reading services. So we only had students who received math services. So on average, students are showing improvement in their reading and mathematics RIT scores anywhere from 8 to 12 points. And that results in those students then entering Math 1, English 1, and in some cases English 2 as sophomores. So over the time and working with our teachers at the high school, those students have drastically improved their skills. The second program is the Gold program, and this is programming for students who are juniors and seniors who are 1 to 2 years behind in credit accumulation. And Dr. Shea has really done a great job with these students year over year. For example, last year, 380 credits were accumulated, representing 761 courses, and this is representative of 92 students. So on average, those students gain over 4 credits each.
And Dr. Epcar, fair statement to say the students in the Gold program we consider to be highly motivated to finish. They have good attendance. They've actually almost agreed to some norms to participate in the program. So these students are motivated to finish, and a lot of them are highly successful as they progress through. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. On top of wonderful teaching by Dr. Shea. So the Gold 2 program is for students who have exhibited behavioral difficulty and work with social workers and psychologists to address that behavior. So this serves as an alternative to suspension. And during the pandemic, or I should say last school year, these students were remote until March. So that explains the low numbers. However, the 5 students at the high school ended FY20 with Ms. Hawkins. And as those students were going through the pandemic, they wanted to continue with Ms. Hawkins. So those 5 students spent last year with Ms. Hawkins, recouped their credits, and addressed their behavior, and they were motivated to work with Ms. Hawkins and were successful. Now the other 5 students represented by our middle school students, 2 students from McGee, 3 students from Raleigh Middle, they were referred to the Gold 2 program due to their behavior, but those students were also successful in addressing that behavior with social workers in the program. An increased focus at the Welcome Center has been wraparound services. Especially through the pandemic, our families have come to us with varying needs. And you can see on the screen the different services that are provided as we collaborate with our community partners, whether that's Mano a Mano, Mother's Trust, the Lake County Health Department, the Round Lake Public Library, and on and on. But I think one of the cases that was most important, we had 2 students who needed rental assistance, and they had a car that needed to be fixed. So we worked with Mother's Trust to secure their first month's rent, and then also Ms. Farragon Wilson and her family own a service shop, and they worked with those students to make sure that their car was running so they could get to work. That's just a small example of the wraparound services that we provide, anywhere from rental assistance to ensuring food security for our families. So as we continue with the services at the Welcome Center, wraparound services will be an important emphasis moving forward. So at this time, it is my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Ms. Jane Farragon-Wilson.
Okay, so as part of the wraparound services, our birth to 5 families, we are starting our 3rd year with the program. And as you can see, our numbers are steadily increasing. We have a max capacity of 60 with the birth to 5, and the mountaintop section, it's open-ended. We do still have a few openings, so if you guys have pregnant friends or people who have just had babies, send them in my direction. As you can see, we do, our staff goes into the homes, which finally in March they were able to do for the first time since we opened our doors, which is really exciting. Our families love having the staff in their homes for their parent meetings. We have weekly or twice a month, we have twice a month meetings where the families come in and we meet at parks. We meet and take walks as families. So, you know, what you see with the program is some of the goals and some of the things that we have, but what you don't get to see is the amount of fun that our students have, the connection that our families are kind of bonding with the district, and the amount of time they're bonding with each other. And it's really amazing to watch the program and to watch it grow. I'm super excited about it.
And I am a special ed coordinator, Birth to 5 for Round Lake area schools. So the Birth to 5 program in Round Lake is actually an umbrella program. Under it, we have 2 programs. We have Mountaintop, which serves children birth to age 5. And then we have a PI grant through the state, which services parents or women who are pregnant through their child's 3rd birthday.
Along with Farragon-Wilson, each child development liaison makes a huge impact on district families.
What I enjoy about working with families is that we have the opportunity to work alongside them and walk through parenthood.
And I would add that I really like getting to know the families and also seeing the children grow and progress through different developmental milestones.
Sometimes it feels like we even become part of the family.
Yeah, They welcome us into their home and into their families.
One of the many events hosted by the liaisons are group connections that bring parents and kids together.
So far, the one that has been our favorite, or at least my favorite, has been the one we just held this month because it's our first one that we actually got to do in person with our families. So we got to see the families interact with other families and other kids. Since the pandemic started.
And we also had one of our community partners, the Round Lake Area Public Library was there, and we had story time and dancing. The weather was great, it was outdoors, and a lot of the families that had previously joined on Zoom group connections finally got to meet each other in person.
Stay tuned for more videos on this program. For more information, visit our website, RLAS-116.org. On the corner.
Do you have any questions for us?
I do have a question. Other than sending you my pregnant girlfriends, how do my pregnant girlfriends know of this program?
Jane, can you talk into the mic? We're live streaming. Yep, thank you.
So we have a Facebook page. We are also on the district page. We send out flyers to the families in the district. We recently sent out flyers through an organization who is donating diapers. We have flyers up in grocery stores and in other areas in the community, as well as in all of the buildings.
Okay, so I guess it's like, how do we get, if they don't have an existing child in the district, maybe new to the community, like it's their first child, how are we getting that information to them?
That's a good question. The flyers that Jane referred to, we also have those at area hospitals, so that as families are coming in to give birth, they receive our information, so then they can sign up for our programming if they live within our boundaries. Our original vision for this program was for each of the hospitals to have an iPad, and then families would register right there in the hospital on the iPad. Due to some of the bureaucracy in the local hospitals, we haven't been able to use those iPads for that purpose. However, they do have our flyers that have a QR code where they can scan that QR code and then fill out our registration information for our Birth to 5 programming.
And again, I can also recommend to the recommend them to the district or the Welcome Center.
Absolutely. We are also part of 211 in the county, and we can get referrals through 211 for our Birth to 5 programming as well.
Okay, thank you.
So for the wraparound services for the Welcome Center that's not just for new families to the district, that's for anybody that needs referral for services.
Correct. That's for anyone, any family in the district. Again, whether they need legal services, and we work with pre-legal services, or really if they need immigration support through mano a mano, it's any family in the district who really has any need that we can conceivably address.
And one more question, the 21 homeless students and that number declining, do we know, and it's sometimes difficult to know why, but do we know if it's because they found housing or they've moved out of the district?
It's a combination of factors. Some families have moved out of the district. Some families, their housing has become more stable, so they don't require those services. So we do follow up on a regular basis. So for us, we can follow up after 18 months. So we send out letters, please get back to us and let us know if you still require these services. And when they tell us they don't, then we take them off the rolls. So it's been a combination of either moving out of the area or finding stable housing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn the microphone over to Ms. Lisa Mari.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. A little bit different presentation than the last time I was here a month or so ago, where we had a student who won the Infinitec Award. That was all exciting. You had some show and tell things that you got to see and touch, so that was kind of fun. This is a little bit more the business end of special education. I am so proud and blessed to work with 9 team members that have such a wonderful mindset about students with disabilities. We have coordinators, and they're here to support too. And Carla Richards is behind me. She's the assistant principal, one of them at the high school. Jasenia is our elementary coordinator. Jane, you already met, and Linnell is over here too. Yep. She does our out-of-district placements and also transition. And then we have specialists at the elementary and middle school level as well, and a department chair at the high school. So this next slide comes from our December count, and this it talks about the number of students that we have with IEPs within our district. So that's the 1,056. Private placement is 26, and CEDAW placements at 50. One of the things I'm most proud of, if you mathematically work on that, 93% of our students with IEPs are able to be serviced within our district. We've been very creative about programming, and you've been very generous with funding to make sure that our students are able to be educated within our own school district. So one of the requests from the board over years is, well, how does that compare to previous years? So this is the December count for students that have received education at CEDAL over the course of time. So in 2021, it was 54, and if you remember on the previous slide, it was at 50. Lots of small numbers on there, but this is the tuition rate over time for the CEDAL programming. So we have it as far back as 2016-17, and then you'll see the 21-22 tuition rate as well. And then the numbers down toward the bottom talks about how many students we have placed in the various programming. So you'll see the LASO classes, which focuses on students on the autism spectrum. We have 11 students placed there. You'll see Laremont, which is the special needs school for medically fragile students. There are 18 students we have placed there. John Powers is for deaf and hard of hearing. That's 9. Gages Lake is the elementary of students that have emotional and behavioral concerns. That's at 7. And then Sid Lash Academy is the high school programming with students that have emotional and behavioral concerns at 5. This next slide talks about our private therapeutic programming, and the placements that we use are on the left. It varies from year to year depending upon the particular needs of the student. But currently we have 26 students in some of our private therapeutic programming. One of the questions that came up at last year's presentation was about contractual employees and where we're using them and how we're using them. So over time, we added the numbers and the different positions. And so you'll see for 21-22, for example, we needed to use an occupational therapist. We weren't able to fill that position with our own staffing and hiring. And the social worker, speech and language pathologist, school psychologist, that's actually a 1.6 position we weren't able to fill. The special ed teacher, that covered an FMLA. And then the total cost. So the team that I work with loved this quote. You can't teach a child to swim by taking them out of the pool. And then Ann Menninghoff, who's been in our district helping support us over the last couple of years, adds in, nor by just throwing them in. So again, it speaks to that inclusivity. We want our students in our gen ed classes as much as possible, but with supports. One of the main initiatives or focuses that you'll hear us talking about is inclusive practices. And really it starts at the EEC. So Jane and Janie have done an exceptional job of thinking through programming. Where can we include all students? And they've decreased the number of instructional classes at the EEC while increasing the preschool for all classes. So if you think more larger classes with inclusion. And here are our 20, 21, 22 initiatives: inclusive practices, co-teaching, and specially designed instruction. We've learned a lot from Ann Benninghoff. She has been here giving professional development and coaching, and the team members that I have are ready to pick up the torch and continue on for many more years to come and implementing these various strategies that we've learned about, including she's taught us a lot about memory strategies and how to utilize small groups within the classroom, how to implement specially designed instruction, and how the gen ed students in a co-taught class, they learn and gain from the incidental benefit from the special education teacher as well. Here you'll see the book that we've been studying, Specially Designed Instruction, and the coaching that happens from the specialists based on the information that they've learned here. And we don't want to forget about our older students. House Bill 40, which became a public act in July of 2021, kind of changed our numbers in the transition center. So recently I came to you to ask for an additional teacher for the program because we're growing, which is really exciting for us. So the law extends, students used to leave the program the day before they turned 22. Now students are entitled to stay and finish that school year. So if your birthday is September 15th, it used to be September 14th was your last day. Now you can stay all the way until June or whenever our last day happens to be. This slide also kind of talks about our Panther work program. We have work sites for our high school and our transition center students. And we go to Oak Hill, we go to Walgreens, we go to Chili's, other places in the communities. We have 4 sites in Round Lake, 3 in Lake Villa, 1 in Haynesville, and there are 2 within our district that we're supporting students here within our own school district boundaries. One of the things we're most proud about is our ARF Treats, and that's a student-run business. And Miss Linnell Collins is here. So if you have a dog, there you go. They love them. If not, share it with a neighbor. So these were made by our students in the Transition Center. A relatively new program for us is Career Crossroads, and we're partnering with the Lake County Workforce to provide some paid employment opportunities for some of our special needs students. And then lastly, Linnell's working on a horticultural summer program and writing curriculum that hopefully will carry us into the next school year as well. Any questions?
No questions. I just wanted to thank you for including like the contract employees in that level of detail that was asked. So thank you.
I have a quick question. Is this the first year of our STEP contract?
No. I want to say this is year 3.
This is year 3 of our STEP contract. How have we been doing so far?
Good. Good. Yeah, we're finding the outcomes that we need. We have 2 outstanding, Kent Korth at the high school is our transition specialist, and then Jim Ross over at the Transition Center. He's phenomenal. So they work really well together, and they've been doing a good job for us.
Our goal is to have 7 outcomes because this is a performance-based grant. And right now we have 4. You know that students have to have 200 hours of work service in order for us to qualify for an outcome. And so right now we have about 9 students that are actually working. And so we're really proud of that. And so once they start accruing their hours, then we'll be able to get some more outcomes, and then we'll be able to get more money.
Well, awesome job getting 9 of them placed in job.
Thank you very much. Hearing nothing more. All right, next up on the agenda is employee medical insurance rates for 22-23. Pretty much a review for the board. Did we have any questions from the board? Dr. Gibbons, any highlights?
The highlights are that our rates have increased coming into the 22-23 school year. This is basically what we're seeing in the industry for all insurance rates, not only here at the school district, but also in the private sector as well. And so on our PPO plans, we're looking at an 8.2% increase, and on our HMO plans, 7.6%, with a 0% increase both on the PPO and the HMO dental plans for next year.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, we will then move on to the fiscal 23 budget assumptions.
Okay, so as we plan ahead for the fiscal 23 or the 2022-2023 school year, the information I'm presenting this evening is based on flat information on our revenues. And we know that we will be receiving that information shortly, we just don't know when. So it's best in a very prudent manner to look at those flat revenues coming in. As we look at line 6 of the budget assumption, it has been documented as the ISB coding error, which is what was presented to us as school districts. That is a revenue increase of $982,186. I'm very pleased and proud to announce that that did hit our bank account today. So that truly is money in the bank for us. Looking at line 7, we are moving forward with part of our NIHIP reserve funds that we will be using to offset the increase of the insurance memo that I just shared with you, and that would be an increase of $275,000 to our revenues to support that additional charges. And then line 9, the treasurer bond, that is something that's required, and that will be up for action in the June meeting. That action would be not only having me continue in that very honorable position as your district treasurer, but also that surety bond is what is required, and we are using the same coverage, but it would just be less cost and a savings to the district of $3,740. So with that being said, again, I can't stress enough, a flat revenue of EBF that we know will increase. Our positive budget picture at this point is $1,447,014 as we enter the new fiscal year.
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, thank you very much on that. And next up is our forward bond refunding placement update.
This is just a follow-up from the Board of Education approved refunding moving forward. In March of just a couple of months ago, the Board of Education approved a resolution to move forward with this. Very pleased and proud to announce that based on your recommendations and support, we will be saving the taxpayers approximately $741,029 over the course of the remaining bonds that are out there. We are not extending the term, so it's the same term length of our debt, and the interest rate that we were able to secure was 2.62% from a 3.66%. So thank you to our board for supporting this effort.
Hearing no questions, thank you very much. All right, next up for board review was the disposal of furniture and obsolete items. Did the board have any questions in regards to the disposal list? Did not expect that. Moving on then to the BOE report on the 2022 NSBA conference. I will let each of the three of you, well, two of you, I know Miss Lee is very disappointed to not be able to present, so we'll probably hear from her at our next meeting, but I'll turn it over to you two.
I've talked a handful of times already about the feedback from the event and have actually met with, in the Community Engagement Committee, have met with Dr. Center and with Heather Bennett about some of the learnings from that, and that's included in the report.
Good. Thank you, Scott. So again, in the pre-conference, one of the sessions I attended was visiting Cajon Valley Union School District, where they do the World of Work with the mission of happy kids, healthy relationships, and the path of gainful employment. The World of Work is the integration of framework that they use. Their district serves over 17,000 students, has 10 elementary schools and 10 elementary and middle schools. And most of their student population does live in poverty and has many refugees in their area. It is San Diego, but so it is a very beautiful area. The elementary schools that they chose for us to visit was Avocado Elementary, and yes, an avocado is their mascot. So, where they focus on healthy bodies, healthy hearts, and healthy minds. And they already have those children learning about entrepreneurship, where they are making products and selling at their open houses. And yes, it is an avocado keychain. This is very, the kids are very engaged in what they do, and even at that young age, they're already talking about their business plan and making money and the profit, and like they're using return on investment. I'm like, this is elementary, right? They were so well spoken. Chase Elementary is another school that we met, and again, kids are exploring careers, and they meet a professional in certain arenas. And in this case, for this elementary school, they were talking about foresters, and they use GLAD, which is a guided language acquisition design, to help incorporate bilingual students to stimulate learning content and acquiring language. Rios Elementary is another school that we visited. This is a magnet school, and it's actually America's first elementary computer science magnet school. It is preschool through 5th grade. And in this school, they are already exploring careers and doing web design and having the kids be help desk technicians and helping other students and teachers. And they were actually creating video games from scratch and implementing them and using them in the classroom. And then the last place we visit was a middle school, where they focus on the launch pad, is what they call it, where they focus on planning for high school, what's after high school, paying for education, and then their journey. Now, all these schools do use what's called the RISEC for students, so they become aware of their strengths, interests, and values. And the RISEC is an acronym for realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. So from kindergarten all the way through high school, they explored these areas with the students, and they are then assigned 4 letters in kindergarten, and as they go through elementary and middle school, they go down to the 2 letters, so that they learn if they're realistic, investigative, artistic, or social, and it helps them to focus on where their strengths are and maybe what, again, that world of work that they want to do, that helps them, whether their path after high school is college or is it trade. So it's really interesting to see, and in my report you'll see the template that they have that they're using within the building for RISEC, and then their little RISEC party that they use. And then, as I mentioned, in that launch pad, you'll see there's pictures that they use for planning for high school, and then what's after high school. And I thought those pictures that they use for what's after high school, where they talk about bachelor's, associates, master's, doctorate, that was a great visual to have in their building for not only students, but for parents. I know we have a lot of students who will be first generation college students, and a lot of parents want to help their children in that vein, but they may not know. So to have this visual, they had informed that this really helps the kids and the parents to have those conversations, to really initiate those conversations. And then again, I have on that same board, they have paying for education. How can they pay for education? And then they have the kids document their journey. So that first day was a lot of information. It was really great to visit other schools to see what they're doing, see what their curriculum is, what's working, and their feedback. Of course, being San Diego, they have a lot of classrooms outside. We won't get that luxury, but it was really, really great. I've never heard of the RLAS previously to visiting, and I don't know if any of our administrators have heard of that or seen it in play. But it is, I thought, very, very interesting, and the kids really did gravitate towards it because they're like, well, I know I like and I know I'm strong in this, and that really helped drive them through their education. General sessions, Damon Johns from Shark Tank was a speaker. He's the founder of FUBU. If anyone doesn't know, it's For Us By Us clothing line. He was actually very engaging and dynamic speaker, and Scott's in agreement. I wasn't sure what to expect for him as a public speaker, but it was actually a lot better than I anticipated. He shared his 5 shark points, which is set a goal, become what you want, become what you think about the most. Homework, take inventory of the actions you do and don't take. Amor, which is love what you do and love the people as you do it. Remember your brand. How would you describe yourself in 2 to 5 words? And then keep swimming, never give up, push through, and hustle. So he was a very engaging speaker and enjoyed that general session. One of the sessions I also attended, and it's Elevating Student Voice in K through 12 Education Governance. And I know Mr. Francisco has brought this up before about how we reach out to our student population and get their feedback. And in California, it actually is a law through petition to have a student on their school board. And they actually have voting rights. Now I know we're not California, so, but that is a way for them to get that student feedback and hear the population that we really serve, which are our students. They had some really neat ideas on how to advocate and get students' voice and engaging them with school board and district administrators. And I include some of that in the information I have. I think, I don't know if I know we don't have anything that strong. And I'm not saying we jump right to having a student on the board, but I think it is something we need to really start engaging in to get that student advocacy. I know in that district, in California, they also had it in DC. They brought out the students to the conference. They flew them out, and to hear the students how strongly they felt about it, and having that talk about it when they're doing college essays, and just even some who went straight to jobs, to have that on there and for them to learn that advocacy for themselves. It was really, really good to see in action. And then we did attend the National Hispanic Council. They had a luncheon, and Richard Montiaz, which I'm not sure if anyone maybe knows his story, but he started at Pepsi as a janitor, and he is credited for the founding of the Flaming Hot Cheetos. His story is really one that I've gravitated towards, and if you can Google it and read it, in his finding of Flaming Hot Cheetos, he wound up as a janitor with no formal education, becoming a vice president of sales and marketing for PepsiCo. So I really enjoyed seeing him and listening to him speak. And then, a couple other general sessions. And then again, a lot of the conference really focused on that student voice and that student advocacy. That really seemed to be the theme this year. So I hope that as a board, we could start to look at that. And that's my portion. Any questions?
No questions, just thank you for the detailed recap. And again, as always, I know it from the times I've gone, and for I'm sure everybody else, these conferences are great chances for us to really continue to educate ourselves and to move forward with making sure that we're staying on that cutting edge.
And the only thing, again, I would ask, like I said, including in the packet is that what after high school, because it not only talks about college, but it talks about certifications and other technical degrees that students could go for. I would really like for us to explore how we get that information to our families.
Yep, I wrote it down. And can I have access to, is it possible, can I print some of the detailed notes?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right, well, again, thank you for that recap. And next up is just a review of the disposal of materials. Any questions from the board in regards to those? Hearing none, then we will move forward to reviewing the FOIA request. Any questions from the board in regards to that? Hearing none there, we'll move on. Contracts under 1,000, looks like we do not have anything this time around. So next up, we will go to public comment. As always, members of the public may participate in public comment during regular board meetings by attending in person or by submitting an electronic public comment form. Please note that speakers are limited to 3 minutes. A link to the electronic public comment form is included in the electronic package. Electronic public comments are accepted up until the time the board reaches the public comment section of the meeting agenda, which is now. I do want to make known board members have been provided with a written copy of one electronic public comment that was submitted on Friday, the 13th of May. We acknowledge that electronic public comments are typically read during this portion of the board meeting. However, in this case, the electronic public comment appears to have been submitted by an individual who improperly identified themselves. As per board policy 2:230, public participation in school board meetings and petitions to the board, a person must identify oneself. Do we have any additional public comment? I do not hear any additional public comment. No. Do we have any public comment from our public that is assembled here? Seeing no one step up for that, then we will move on, and I will turn it over to Dr. Mendoza for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Board President Francisco and Board of Education. Just a gentle reminder, it will be a busy weekend. The middle and high school ceremonies are set for this week. Board members, please park near the stadium and meet in room N102. Near the gathering stairs, refreshments will be provided. 8th grade recognition ceremonies, please arrive by 4:30 p.m. The John T. McGee Middle School ceremony is at 5 p.m. The Round Lake Middle School ceremony is at 7:30 p.m. And then, of course, our high school graduation ceremony, please arrive by 9:30 a.m. this Saturday, as the ceremony begins at 10. The 2022 Fine Arts Banquet is scheduled for Wednesday, May 18th at Marivella's. I have to say it's very nice for us to have these again. It has made for an exceptionally busy spring. I think everybody would agree. The doors will open at 6 p.m. and the dinner begins at 6. The doors open at 6 p.m. and the dinner begins at 6:30 p.m. and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. Any questions in regards to the superintendent's report? All right, next up is a recap from our finance committee.
All right, thank you. Yes, Finance Committee met earlier this evening, and we did have a pretty heavy agenda. And there were some attachments that I will, again, as I get to those, refer the board to look at those in the Finance Committee meeting. We had the request for review of a 1.0 FTE library media teaching assistant for the school year of 2022-2023. This will come to the board on June or in the June meeting. This FTE will be split between the two buildings of Round Lake High School and Ellis Elementary. As you know, we did fully rolled out the one-to-one initiative while we were remote, and now that everyone's kind of back in the building, we need that additional handset for the high school, and Ellis being our largest elementary, offering the most specials. We are in need of that library media assistant. The approximate cost for that is $50,400. Funding, of course, out of the district fund, and that'll come for June meeting. Next was contract services for Dr. Michael Frey. Again, that's a not to exceed, and it's funded by the IDEA grant, and that is actually later on in the agenda as well. The inter-fund transfer. Again, this will be on the agenda because we'll need to approve a public hearing, which we will set for Monday, June 20th at 6:50 p.m. And that is to maintain the balances in our Fund 30, which is our debt service. And Dr. Kibbens kind of alluded to that. It's, again, moving those funds with Fund 10, which is education, and to Fund 30 for debt services. And again, we'll need the board to approve a hearing date for June. And then next, we have the 2022-2023 district treasurer and treasurer bond. And again, Dr. Kibbens talked about that, the honor that she has in serving that, and the cost for that, the 15,000, surety bond, and the which is quoted at this for the same coverage of $11,259 and a savings of $3,741 to the district. Formal action for that, as she mentioned again, will come in our June meeting. The fiscal year 23 budget assumptions. Dr. Kibbens covered that under the communications to the board. Again, just a quick recap. After the budget assumptions, we're in the positive of 1.4 million. Dr. Kibbens gave the exact amount. And the fiscal 22 amended budget. Again, Dr. Kibbens covered that. It needs to be on display for 30 days. And that will come later on as well. The Round Lake High School, Round Lake Area Schools District 116 Facility Rental Handbook. This was something that finance and the board had started right about when the pandemic had started. And obviously the attention and need was shifted to the pandemic. But now that we are returning to normal, I'm going to ask the board to review it in the Finance Committee. It will have a final review by the finance. We had just asked that we note in the handbook that it doesn't list the dates that those prices cover, and we want those to align with our fiscal year budget for review and for any price increase. And then the other thing we asked to add, as we know there can be some shortages with staff, that if we don't have the staff for security or janitorial, that would be another reason that we couldn't honor the request. So there will be no formal action coming back to the board. So again, please review. If you have any questions, please let us know. High school theater, you have both the theater and then, of course, the stadium sound system. The theater sound system, again, we're in the timeline of April through July through equipment procurement, and as we've said before, supply chain has been an issue. So there could be some potential change in the timeline. We're waiting to hear. I know there's a kickoff meeting with all the stakeholders in 2 weeks. And then depending on what we know we'll be able to get from the supply chain, it could change how that is implemented. But we'll have better detail within 2 weeks. The stadium, as Dr. Mendoza mentioned, we have graduation Friday and Saturday. We did a preliminary sound check this past week, and everything sounds good. And you know, the stages are coming on Thursday, and we'll do another sound check. But everything is looking good. And then, if there is a rain date, the rain date is listed. And then the employee medical insurance rates, again, Dr. Kibbins covered in communications to the board. Dr. Kibbins again covered the forward bond refunding. And again, I just wanted to thank Dr. Kibbins and Dr. Lamping regarding that. You know, they worked very closely with the banks so that we could make that work and reach that threshold in the parameters resolution that the board approved of the 2% and giving that savings to our community. So I really did want to thank them for their efforts in making that happen as well. And then State Banks of the Lakes Max Safe Money Market. Again, Dr. Kibbins, you know, making sure our investments work for us. And there's been an increase from 0.118% at the beginning of 2022. This is now paying 0.672%. So again, Dr. Kibbins always doing a good job making sure we're doing the best. Independent contract agreement with Carrie Toth, which will be on the agenda later today. And then annual teaching and learning contracts. Again, I encourage the board to look at that. That will come in June again as well. There are quite a list of contracts. I did go over it in great deal with everyone in teaching and learning. So again, I appreciate their time in answering all the questions. I had asked them to make a few updates into that list. So if you did review it, there'll be a bit of changes in the subheadings and in some of the detail where we just needed to call out if it's elementary or middle school. So that will be changed. And then again, the treasurer's report, again, just calling out, you know, Dr. Kibbins in making our money work for us. Their Capital One and BMO rebate cards. Our year-to-date total is $72,259.96. And then the max safe for the $10 million that we invested is at $41,034.42 money making back for us. And I think I covered everything. Any questions?
Hearing none, well, thank you very much for a very detailed Finance Committee update as always. Next up is approval of open meeting minutes.
That's right. I need a motion to approve the April 26, 2022 special meeting minutes, architect firm interviews.
So moved. Second. Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mr. De Vera. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
Mrs. Larson?
Abstain.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the April 27th, 2022 special meeting for the architect firm interview.
So moved. Second. Motion by Mr. De Vera, seconded by Mr. Francisco. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Larson?
Abstain.
Mrs. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. De Vera?
Yes.
Mr. Francisco?
Yes.
Mr. Jewett?
Abstain.
And the motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the April 28th, 2022 special meeting for architect firm interviews.
So moved. Second. Exactly. Motion by Mr. De Vera, seconded by Mr. Francisco. Any questions? Roll call.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Dewitt,
Abstain.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Abstain.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the May 2nd, 2022 special meeting expulsion hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Ms. Larson. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Dewitt,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the May 2nd, 2022 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mrs. Larson. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mr. Dewitt,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes. And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda for the accounts payable report of $1,535,248.41. Previous motions report for $76,571.60. April 2022 treasurer's report, April 2022 P-card report, and the May 16th, 2020 employment report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mr. De Vera. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Dewitt,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
And motion carries. Next up, we have introduction of new administration.
So I do want to just comment quickly and thank everybody in the audience for being patient. You've had to sit for an hour and 45 minutes to get to this point, especially for lack of upsetting anybody, especially our younger visitors. You've done such a great job out there, and I just want to thank everybody for being patient. So thank you.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Brian Peterson. Brian Peterson most recently served as the assistant principal at Dundee Crown High School, located in Carpentersville, Illinois. Brian's responsibilities included overseeing the process of student discipline and attendance, as well as building safety and security. While at Dundee Crown, Brian played a significant role in the development and implementation of a number of powerful programs, including a restorative approach for managing student conflict, Fight the Stigma campaign, focusing on removing the negative stigma associated with mental health and wellness, and the Dundee Crown High School Success Academy, which is a lot like our Gold 1 and Gold 2 program that Dr. Apgar talked about earlier today. Prior to his time in Dundee Crown, Brian served as an assistant principal in School District 89, which serves Maywood, Melrose Park, and Broadview. While in this district, Brian was chosen to be a building leader at Irving Middle School, which is one of the first middle schools to open in that district. Brian played a leading role in implementation of building-wide restorative practice, and this was a defining factor of a tremendously positive school culture. This guiding principle led to high levels of staff morale, active student engagement in extracurricular activities, and substantial growth in student learning and achievement. As a classroom teacher, Brian served schools in North Chicago, and he looked to implement multiple high-level instructional strategies and strengthen the use of professional learning communities in that building. Sorry, he's got a really great past. I want to share all these things. He also assumed a role in the building leadership team, which provided meaningful staff professional development. Brian comes to Round Lake area schools with a high level of support from his professional colleagues. His current director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion speaks to being extremely impressed by Brian's unyielding commitment to the development of a quality climate. His ability to develop academic support programs, demonstrated leadership, and willingness to support students, staff, and school administration. He noted he has personally witnessed Brian's commitment to serving all of the stakeholders within the district. He embodies the district's primary pillar of ensuring that their learning spaces are inclusive of all students. In regards to Brian's personal life, Brian bleeds blue and gold. I'm going to tell a little personal story. I worked with Brian in my previous district, and when he found out I was coming here, the first thing he said is, "Keep me in mind, man. I want to get there." And so we're excited to make that happen. And Brian lived here in Round Lake for almost 30 years. He attended Village, John T. McGee, and graduated from Round Lake High School. He is a member of the Round Lake High School Athletic Hall of Fame. And as I understand it, he is a second generation Panther. So his parents are also alumni of this fine institution. Brian is a father of 2 boys, 9 and 11. He also tends to roll in apparently with a fairly large crowd. We haven't had this many people in a meeting ever, I think. And Brian has committed a large portion of his time to studying and teaching the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We are extremely excited to present Brian Peterson as the next principal at Round Lake High School, and we look forward to a tremendous start to his career here. Brian.
Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate the kind words that you gave tonight. The one thing I do want to point out here that probably is the defining factor of who I am is that I am a Panther. I wanted to be in this role, in this position for my entire duration of my education career. I think that is probably going to be my guiding force as I work with all of you in this room, and I look forward to just pushing that Panther pride. And like I said, I remember at the Hall of Fame 10 years ago, that I got off that stage and talked to Dr. Mendoza right away about wanting to come back here, talked with Kurt about it, and here we are today. I'm tremendously excited and look forward for this opportunity. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you. I have the privilege and the pleasure of introducing Mr. Jeffrey Prowell as our next Director of Transportation. Mr. Prowell most recently served as the Director of Transportation for School District U46 in Elgin since April 2017. At U46, Jeffrey was responsible for the operation of the large pupil transportation department that operated 262 routes and employed over 435 staff, responsible for the safe, efficient, and effective transportation of over 25,000 students per day. Prior to School District U46, Jeffrey served as the Director of Transportation for the Humboldt Independent School District in Humboldt, Texas. At Humboldt ISD, Mr. Prowell managed and directed the day-to-day operations, including oversight of more than 300 employees and transportation of more than 13,000 students on more than 160 routes, maintenance and repair of more than 277 school buses, and more than 230 white fleet vehicles. Under his leadership, the Humboldt ISD Transportation Department was named one of the top 100 fleets in North America in 2015, 2016, and 2017, one of only 3 districts in North America that made the list in 2016. Prior to that, Mr. Prowell served as the Senior Manager of Transportation Terminals and Safety Training for the Houston Independent School District from 2011 to April 2013. In his position at Houston ISD, Mr. Prowell managed the 2 largest bus transportation terminals with direct management and responsibility of more than 450 daily routes traveling approximately 36,000 miles per school day. He managed a staff of more than 500 employees and had direct management and responsibility for all terminal management staff, drivers, clerical, and safety personnel. He initiated and organized management and leadership training for all terminal supervision and management. And Mr. Prowell generated $1.2 million for the district by acquiring additional charter school transportation opportunities. Now you listen to all of that and you go, oh my gosh, we're coming to Round Lake, we're a lot smaller than that, but I learned through my conversations is that Mr. Prowl is not a fan of Texas, and his wife really wanted to get into a different field, so they traded. So his wife got to get into a different field, and he got to move to Illinois and start a new career here. So he also served in the U.S. Army as an enlisted soldier and an officer. He's been married 32 years to his wife Heather, and has 4 daughters and a grandson. It's been a pleasure getting to know Jeffrey. He's eager to learn our system and has already been in contact with Lewis. In fact, he's planning on volunteering his time and will be scheduling several transition dates with him. Although Lewis will be missed, the operations team is confident that student transportation will be in good hands with Jeffrey Prowl joining our team. Welcome to our district.
I just wanted to say thank you to the board, Dr. Mendoza, Dr. Lamping. I appreciate the opportunity. I've heard great things about Round Lake, and I'm excited to be on the team.
All right. Sorry. Like, where'd everybody go? All right. I need a motion to approve the independent contractor agreement with Dr. Michael Frey. Again, this was reviewed through the finance committee, and he's a psychologist that was recommended by H-Lurk.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. DeVera, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any additional questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the renewal of our membership to the Illinois Elementary School Association, IESA, for the 2022-2023 school year for both John T. McGee Middle School and Round Lake Middle School in the amount of $1,700.
Just a quick question before we go to roll call and get motions. This one is completely independent of IHSA, I understand. Did I see something about where we were trying to sync those up, or did I just make that up in my own weird brain?
No, you didn't make that one up. In the future, so this is one of those things, sometimes when you have new eyes on something, they catch something. So we have not done this in the past. We really should. In the future, I will bring this and IHSA together so we can do it as one agenda item.
Thank you. I thought I was losing my mind for a second, which probably would be par for the course. Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Larson, seconded by Mr. Jewett. See, I told you, losing my mind. All in, roll call, please. See, wow.
It's getting late.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. De Vera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
And the motion carries.
All right. Did you want to speak first, or? Yep, okay, good. I need a motion to approve the Round Lake High School, New York trip proposal.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. De Vera, seconded by Mr. Jewett. And any questions, follow-up?
So, of course, because, as we move forward and I step back, COVID protocols, should there be any?
The company we have used, I'm trying to find Entourage, has started to work with a new registration system that offers up to 75% of a refund. 75% of a refund up to 48 hours before the trip for any cancellation due to COVID. They also, ensure that any COVID protocols for the area in which they are traveling or with the district protocols in place that will be in place during the trip.
And that was going to actually be one of my questions is, as I'm sure everyone is aware, New York City, New York tends to be one of the more stringent controllable areas, and rightfully so. What other protections will we have in place in regards to? I'm also a little concerned with the 75% is great, but that's still 25% out of pocket for something that's kind of out of the control of our own parents' hands.
We can work with the entourage also to get more information, but not historically, we haven't been in a pandemic for that long. It just feels like that long. There is still some element of, even for trip cancellations, that you kind of lose out on, and I believe that's built into the agreement the parents sign with entourage.
I guess I'd want to make sure that, we really highlight that. I know you guys have meetings with the parents and the families. I think it's something that needs to be reiterated throughout. I know that the planning and the payments that they make, because 25% is still a lot for a family to have to digest should something happen that their student can't attend.
Or in some cases, more than one student.
Yeah, and we're going to be as transparent as possible from day one once we get the approval, if we get the approval for the trip. Another shift in this is, I don't know if you saw this, is that they're looking at doing flying instead of taking the buses because the cost of actually driving is almost equal to flying right now with the chartered buses. So that was one of the shifts also that they were looking at.
Yes, I saw it's $13.99, and I think it's better to fly. I hate driving, but I think it's better to fly.
So just to reiterate, I heard we just got to make sure we're clearly, regularly, consistently, and often communicating with parents on the front end so they're clear about kind of what the expectations are.
Absolutely. We'll have that first initial meeting at the beginning of the year next year where we are explaining everything as explicitly as we can and continuously reiterating what the plans are and moving forward what we're doing.
Chrissy, could you actually put, it's hard to predict exactly when, but if you could put a sequence of communication and methods, maybe you could connect with Heather and then I could send it to the board just so we keep that on like the radar.
Absolutely. We were just waiting to hear back about the flying piece of it too before we were making any final kind of like timeline plans.
Did you say there's any room for negotiation on that 25%?
Yeah, I was going to ask that same question because that still seems to be a big sticking point for me.
It's the registration company that the company works with. It's like their insurance company that they're working with for the trip. So that's just kind of like the trip insurance up to 75% or 75% up to 48 hours before they were to take off.
Okay. And I get that. I mean, it's out of our hand. So, like Dr. Mendoza said, that communication is clear because I know, having had students do this, they, the kids get so excited and sometimes you miss that in the meeting. But if we have written communication, in any other form that we can do, highlighting that. This is obviously new, having the COVID stipulation.
This is actually for any cancellation, not even just COVID. So it's kind of that piece. Like if the kid gets sick for something else or if something comes up, it's 75% of their trip is refunded up to 48 hours before.
Yeah, I know, but like if they get COVID, that's new. We haven't had that.
Or if the state of New York and or the city of New York close, much like Wally World, if it just closes, then our families are out 25% through nothing of their own.
And I can look into it too. I can look into what the cancellation policy was before too, to kind of show a comparison if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. But at the same time, even before, I remember I sent a child on that, and it was that you could buy the trip insurance, and it was kind of the same thing. But that was also a different world of where states don't literally close.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. We had the motion, we had the second, so roll call, please.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
No.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
And the motion carries.
All right, I need a motion to approve the public hearing date for the fund balances transfer for June 20th, 2022 at 6:50 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mr. Jewett. Any additional questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes. Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the independent contract agreement with Carrie Toth in the amount of $3,000.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Tavera. Any additional questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the public hearing date of Monday, June 20th, 2022 at 6:55 p.m. for the fiscal year 2022 amendment budget hearing.
So moved. Second. Motion by Mr. Francisco, seconded by Mr. Tavera. Any additional questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes. And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the expenses related to the Board of Education travel, meals, and lodging for the joint annual conference.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Tavera. Any additional questions? Can't believe we're already this far along in the year. Roll call, please.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Motion carries.
Is anyone going to speak to? I can. We covered it in the finance, but if you want to.
This is the teaching and learning contracts that we currently have, so we're just moving forward with renewal of existing contracts, nothing new.
So as mentioned, we did review this in great detail in the finance committee. Worked with Dr. Center to get some areas updated. So the format that you see currently in the packet will be a little updated when it comes forward to the June meeting. Just clarifications on, like I said earlier, elementary, middle school, and then just little tweaks on the columns so we know what some of those dollar amounts are as far as annual. Because we have some multi-year contracts in there, some that are yearly, and then so there's subscriptions. So obviously we can't do multi-year contracts. But again, it went through a great review with the finance committee, and again, appreciate all of teaching and learning's time in answering all those questions. So again, this is informational. It'll come back in June.
Thank you. All right, then next up is positive occurrences.
It's graduation week.
It is here. Dun dun dun.
I have one. It's kind of a collective positive occurrence. Just it seemed like I think people on the team and even you would agree that the last week and this week and the week it's pretty busy. But that's like good because we're having the events that we have not had. The senior athletic banquet, the fine arts banquet. I went to the all the end of the year band festival. I mean, these things that we have missed, I just forgot how often they are stacked up, and they are definitely stacked up this year. So, but in the end, it's feeling of joy that we're able to have these again. I'm grateful for it. And it's great to see our kids and community back in celebrating our students. So that's just one for a bunch of things.
And I would have to say, going to the band and also the choir concerts last week, I gotta give it to the teachers, all the band teachers who stepped in and filled in for all of our kids who are out with COVID and just, you know, jumped in that day and didn't know what they were playing or whatever. And just, the kids just did an amazing job at both concerts. They were just wonderful.
Yeah, and out there, it was great being able to, like you said, Dr. Mendoza, get everybody back, to have the actual senior awards presentation, to have our senior athletics, the signing day presentation. It was great being in the building with everybody, seeing the parents and the students together for all of that, and being able to start handing out those cords and those stoles and the whole 9 yards. It's great to see it back, and it's great to be able to continue that tradition.
And then just, you know, we had the dinner, was it a week or two ago, with the Regional Office of Education, where they recognized Dr. Mendoza. Oh, we have that too. I didn't get to that, but that was next. That's okay. We can add that too. We'll start there then. Yeah, the tech campus. You know, I know we had asked a few times so we can get the board over there. So I appreciate that they were able to accommodate our schedules. I think it's great to get to the tech campus and see what our students are learning and seeing and what they're doing over there, because it's you know, not here on campus. And appreciate the meal that our Round Lake students cooked for us from the culinary area. It was very nice. So again, thank you for getting that arranged. But then again, like I said, we had the dinner at the Regional Office of Education, where Dr. Mendoza was recognized, and even people within our own district, teachers, our nurses, our tech department. So it was nice to see them all recognized.
All right. Hearing no more, we will move on then to future agenda items. Who's got any?
I have one, sorry. Could we review our policy on public comment? Making sure that, I know we do our policy review. I don't think we really went over that one for public comment.
Yep, we'll bring something back for the board's consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up are closed session minutes.
All right. I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of the April 11th, 2022 special meeting expulsion hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. DeVera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the closed session meeting minutes of the April 11th, 2022 regular board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Mr. DeVera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
And motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the April 11th, 2022 closed session special meeting expulsion hearing minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. DeVera. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. DeVera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett,
Yes.
Motion carries.
I need a motion to approve the April 18th, 2022 closed session regular meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Tavera. Any additional questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett.
Yes.
And motion carries. All right, next up, I'll need a motion to convene in closed session as permitted by statute 5 ILCS 120/2 for the purpose of discussing the following: employment matters, 5 ILCS 120/2 C1.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Jewett, seconded by Mr. Tavera. Any additional questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Francisco,
Yes.
Mr. Tavera,
Yes.
Mrs. Larson,
Yes.
Mr. Jewett.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Great evening tonight. We look forward to seeing you at our next regular meeting, and we will not be coming back out of closed on the live stream, so have a great evening.